Hello, everybody. My name is Asteria Rogan, and I am with COAC Detroit. I'm the administrative assistant here. Um, just who we are at COAC. COAC Detroit is a hub that accelerates transformational impact with nonprofit and community organizations in Southeast Michigan through collaborative idea generation, cross-sector resources, and equitable access to world-class programming and learning opportunities. Our core values: equity, access and inclusion, transparency and trust, quality and excellence, collaborative learning culture, disruption of the status quo. We like to mix it up here at COAC. And our session today is an introduction to individual giving. And your facilitators are the lovely Trish DeWalt, she is the advisor for COAC Detroit. And myself, Asteria Rogan, executive assistant for COAC Detroit. So now I will turn it over to the wonderful Trish.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks so much for being here for Intro to Individual Giving. Just to level set, this series of introduction to activities that we're doing with COAC Detroit is powered by Candid. Candid is a national platform for nonprofit organizations, and it's a mashup of Foundation Directory Online and GuideStar, all up under a Candid umbrella. And so the training that we'll be going through today and that we have been going through is put together by Candid. And I share that because there'll be a little bit of a commercial later on for GuideStar profile claiming. And also to let you know, there's some vernacular in this particular session that that I might challenge a little bit, and I would encourage you to challenge as well. When we think about individual giving, they liken it to sales and the sales process, which I have a bit of a reaction to, but we'll use that in some of our conversation a little bit later. But you can see here the goals of today's session to get us ready for really igniting our individual giving efforts. And so before we jump into that, we've got a couple of just definitions about fundraising, programming, annual giving campaign, and major gifts. How you, and go to the next slide, Asteria, how you talk about individual giving is really dependent on your organization, right? So your fundraising program, your fundraising plan, we've talked about that in previous sessions, but how do you take your strategy, tactics, and objectives and really put them together with timelines and ownership to make sure that you're moving that fundraising, those moves management are happening along the course of your year. Annual giving, this is typically repeated efforts to get folks to engage into your organization.
Okay, anime.
I think, Asteria, if you can mute folks, and then if anybody wants to come off mute to ask questions, we certainly welcome that and encourage that. Feel free to use chat too. Asteria will be monitoring chat. Guess I have to unmute myself too. Campaign, this is really just like an effort, right? We'll talk about individual efforts related to individual giving. You could have an event as a campaign. You can have an annual fund as a campaign. You can have major giving campaigns. It's just a nice collection. And then major gift. This varies greatly depending on the organization. Some organizations started at $5,000. Some organizations look at major gifts at the $500 level. It varies widely depending on your organization, but how we approach major gifts is funneled through our annual giving efforts. All right, so there's a poll, and I don't know that we actually have poll functionality turned on, Asteria, but
no, we do not.
But I'm curious to know by show of hands or drop into the chat or come off mute, where are you at with your individual giving programs? Like, are you thinking about creating one? Do you have one that you want to update? Are you just here to learn what it is, to see if you want to start one? Just trying to level set with where folks are.
Oops. I'll speak. It's Charnice with the connection. So we created a program called the Community Builders, and that's a group of our individual givers where they can give a once, or they can give a reoccurring gift at any amount. So it's a kind of our platform and our idea of engaging individual givers. We haven't done a bunch of work around it, or as far as like pushing it out consistently. So I think that's kind of our challenge right now, coming up with a plan to kind of continue to push that out. But that's what we have.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. Got some new organizations, some folks that are sort of in this thinking about it phase. I mean, I think, you know, part of the work of fundraising, right, is knowing where and when to spend your resources. And I think a lot of times we spend our energy working on foundation gifts or corporate gifts because they're big bangs for the buck, right? And if you're one person trying to manage all of these pieces, it's really difficult to invest in the um, like the long-term play of investing in individual giving campaigns, because these are relationships, as are all of your fundraising activities. So they take energy and time, but the beauty is that the more we invest in our relationships, the more they pay off in the long term. And so, for those of you that have been on these sessions before, you've probably seen this pie chart. But I just like to bring it up here again as a reminder of where the individual donors fit within this great big pie of contributions to organizations. And so we know from previous sessions that this pie is bigger because there's simply more people in the world than there are foundations and corporations put together, but also, they tend to be much more loyal. They can be really great advocates for you. And so while I'm a huge proponent of having a nice diversified mix, for those of you that might be more grant heavy, really developing this additional revenue stream from individuals is going to help you with your event attendance, with your advocates, with your potential board building, and all of the activities that we know are really important for robust fundraising activities. And so, when we think about the diversification of funding, there's this beautiful graphic of a river, right? And so your funding streams may be all or some, or maybe none of these yet as you're starting out as a nonprofit organization. But it's important to think about all of the potential revenue streams when you do your fundraising planning. And so while this is a beautiful river, I think there are a couple missing that organizations can and could be using as diversification streams. For example, corporate contributions or sponsorships, underwriting activities from corporate partners. Crowdfunding is a source that some organizations use, especially in the early stages of their organization's existence, as they're building out those ripple effects of folks that are committed to and contributing to your organization. And then also earned income, right? Earned revenue strategies. How are you monetizing your skills, your assets, your knowledge base? Maybe it's merchandise to help add to that funding mix for your organization. And so the key takeaway here is that the more tributaries that you have leading into this funding stream, the stronger your organization will be and be able to withstand any sort of major changes to your funding mix, right? We don't want to be too reliant on one funder or one type of funder in case something goes wrong in that particular sector. We're far enough away now from 2008 where it's not terribly triggering to my nonprofit leaders right now, but in 2008, when the decline of the automotive industry was happening, that was really rocky, a really rocky time to be a fundraising professional in Detroit in particular, especially for those of us who were working for organizations that were very heavily dependent on automotive support. So, diversification of revenue can be a really important strategy to make sure your organization weathers any of those changes. All right, so why do people give? Why do individual humans give to nonprofits? We'll talk a little bit about the psychology of giving, but why do you think people support your organizations? What are some reasons? Come off mute, drop them in chat. They feel aligned to mission and the story of the work. It speaks to their heart. Absolutely.
Someone they trust asks them to give.
Yes, Alice. It's true.
Tax write-off.
There's that.
Yeah.
They believe in what you're doing.
Mhm. Peer pressure from friends and associates with the nonprofit.
Their values align. Turning the pain into purpose. Yeah, that can be a huge motivator. That emotional connectivity to mission is really important. I mean, I think we've all been to or hosted events for fundraising events, right? Where you know they're about to make you cry. They're about to make you cry because they're about to ask you for money. We know that's part of some of the plans for fundraising events, right? But that mission connection, but getting folks to be emotionally moved by your story, right? Whether it's crying or excitement or fear, right? All of those things are true motivators. Some folks give because they feel fortunate or guilty and they want to give something back to a community that's given them something. What else? Uh, there's some examples of charitable organizations that sort of do this social proof concept, right? Like I've got the wristband and I want the wristband because everybody I know has the wristband or the t-shirt or the hat, right? To show that you're part of something. A good example is public radio, right? You'll oftentimes see folks wearing, carrying their tote bags, or the tote bags are a big part of their annual giving pushes. It could be part of a social media trend or pressure. Think back again, light years ago to the ice bucket challenge. That was really successful for some organizations for a long time. Some folks do it because they want to look good in the community. They want a pat on the back, right? And so these, one size fits all is not the answer, but I think the important thing that makes us particularly good sleuths as development professionals is figuring out what that emotional connection is that our donors have. But the number one reason that people give is because they were asked, right? Like, and somebody said it early in the chat, right? Like, you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But donors make their decisions based on who's asking them and who's in front of them with the right message at the right time that resonates with them. All right, Asteria, I think if you skip ahead, skip that one because we just talked about it. So this is about the how of individual giving. And remember at the beginning of this, if anybody popped on late, I did a little bit of an asterisk about the vernacular that Candid uses here. In this case, they talk about fundraising and cause selling. And while there are certainly familiarities between the sales cycle and the fund development moves management or fund development relationship building cycles, I'm not selling necessarily anything when I'm a fundraiser, right? I'm trying to connect you to my mission, to my community, to the opportunity to change lives. But I'm not necessarily giving you something in return. We can debate this a lot, and I welcome the healthy debate. I like to think of fundraising separate from selling. But for the purpose of this session, using the concepts of fundraising and sales together, I think, there are some really interesting parallels. And so, excuse me, my voice is still recovering a little bit from Mackinac from the policy conference. A lot of talking to do when you're up there. So this, the importance from these donuts is really that there's a strategy to fundraising, just like there's a strategy to sales. And so how we deploy those tactics in nonprofit social impact work is really, it's a bit of the science that goes along with the art. And so on the next slide, we break it out into the cause selling cycle, aka fundraising, right? And so there are 8 essential steps to this activity, and regardless of the size of the gift, right? So whether you're talking about $5, $100, $100,000, the actions, the activity, the work that we put into fund development is pretty predictable, right? So all of these phases and stages need to happen and should be an important part of how you approach individuals and, quite frankly, anybody that you're looking to involve in your organization, whether it's a board member or a foundation or an individual. So this 8-step cycle really is applicable across the board. And so, just walking through them very briefly, thinking about, phase 1, prospecting. That's when we're trying to figure out like who's in our pond, right? How are we finding qualified potential donors? Phase 2 is going to be your face-to-face time, like getting used to or getting in front of the donors. And then phase 3, these blue ones here, is everything that happens after the gift is given. And so to break that down a little bit more on this next slide, what do we mean by prospecting? Putting together a list of everybody that you think you should be talking to. The pre-approach is gathering the information that you need to be really successful in approaching somebody, right? What are they interested in? Where are they? What do they do? Introducing them, introducing yourselves to the donor. What's your approach? Is now we're in phase 3. The 4th step is need discovery, right? How do the donor's unique passions align with the work that you're doing? How do we tell the story? How do we present to these donors now that we've pre-qualified them, we found them, we figured out our approach? Now, how do we align the mission presentation? How do we share with them something that's going to move them to get really close to your organization? The 6th step is thinking about and removing objections, right? And this varies greatly for folks, but there may be a conversation that you're having with an individual that sounds like, our giving is closed for this year. I've made all my commitments, right? How do we move beyond that objection to prepare to ask for a gift? And then what does the follow-up look like? Like, how do we make sure that we foster that loyalty with donors once they've made the gift? We've asked, they've made the gift, and then how do we keep them close to the work that we're doing so that they stay engaged and emotionally connected with our work? You want to go one more slide, Asteria? So I think this is beautiful, right? So they take it a little bit away from the sales and make it more social. But this cause selling cycle really has to have heart, and you can't have the heart of the ask without really robust need discovery, right? That discovery part of the pie is the heart of the process, because it helps you as fundraising professionals uncover what those donors or potential donors' underlying motivations, their needs, and their priorities are, so that you can be best prepared for an ask for them. The right questions, right? Active listening skills will help carry you through this whole process. And, I don't want you to think about it necessarily as an interview, but as you go from the pre-ask meeting all the way through to solicitation and stewardship, you have to practice active listening so that your donors and potential donors know that you're hearing them. And I think, there's a common saying in major gift work and individual work that I like to share, and it's that you don't ask your way into a gift, you listen your way into a gift. And so I want to pause here right now, because this individual giving work that I'm laying out now feels like very one-on-one, individual to individual approach. But I will also say that these same principles apply when you're thinking about a group of folks. So if you think about members to your organization, the same cycle and process can work for how you talk to donor constituent groups en masse to move them through your fund development pipeline. But this particular session might feel a little bit more like a one-to-one, person-to-person strategy. But I encourage you to think about this as a process that can be modified to fit all of those needs. All right, so you've got the approach. Part of this has to be fueled by your fundraising plan. And we've talked about fundraising plans before, but for those of you that this may be your only or first session with us, I just want to go back to it a little bit. So this is your fundraising plan is an iterative document that lays out all of your tasks and strategies and timelines. And what it really does is puts you and your organization in the position of being proactive with these fundraising activities and needs. Right? We don't ever like to be in the position of having a fundraising crisis, right? Where we're struggling to make our programmatic needs and our funds available match. But this fundraising plan is really that roadmap that helps to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And so it's a really critical planning tool that helps your organizations, whether you're starting up or rethinking what you've been doing for decades, right? It's still a really important activity that helps galvanize you, if you're a solopreneur in this fund development space or nonprofit leadership space, and your staff, your board, your volunteers. It helps them to have a really clearly articulated understanding of the big picture of the organization's, not only the fundraising needs, but also how you plan, and by you, I mean ustedes, like all of you in the group, staff, volunteers, board members, to meet those needs, right? Because it's not just the staff's responsibility to understand the plan and the role in the process, but also like the team sport of board involvement, like their agreed upon role in the execution of making your fund development plan come to life. It also gives you cover as you're moving through this organizational development phase to make sure that you're thinking about all of the different fundraising streams and potential streams for revenue to capitalize your organization. You know, fundraising plans typically will go within your organization's fiscal year or calendar year. You know, I'd like to remind you, this isn't a thing that you're just going to sit down and pound out in an hour or two, right? It really is a team activity that can be driven by one person, but really needs to be bought into and supported by several members of the organization, because no one person should be doing all of this relationship building and the asking and the strategizing and the writing, right? Your fundraising plan will be an iterative document. It will start with a draft. You'll socialize it. You'll rethink it. You'll get feedback. You'll get ownership from your volunteers and board members about which parts of it feel doable and supportable by themselves. But I just like to ground this part of the conversation in that like you have to have a plan. You can't just say, hey, I want some individuals to give me money. You got to build it into your strategy. And so if we think about the fundraising plan as it relates to individuals, here's what a sample might look like for your fundraising plan, right? You want to raise $10,000 from new and occasional donors by the end of the month. We're going to do it by launching a virtual fundraising campaign. And then, you know, these are the different activities that support that, right? So, we don't just, and I see organizations do this all the time, right? In November, they're like, oh crap, Giving Tuesday's coming up. What are we going to do to get money in the door? That's not the time to be thinking about the strategy for Giving Tuesday. You know, at the beginning of November isn't the time to be thinking about the end of November activities, because what we should be doing in the lead up to the launch of the campaign, all of that selling cycle that we talked about a few slides ago, right? So researching potential prospects, designing the virtual campaign, figuring out how many prospects do we need to have to reach this goal, right? Like taking a $10,000 goal and breaking it down into bite size. I mean, it could be, you know, uh, you know, 2 donors at $5,000. That changes your prospect pool. But if you're looking at $10,000 from $10 donors, how do you find the community big enough in which to cast your net is what I encourage you to think about in this fundraising strategy planning phase, right? Because if you don't know 2 people to give you $5,000, then you start looking at your goals differently. Is it 4 at 2,500? Is it, however you slice and dice the math, it's, just an important exercise to think through. And then how you assign those goals to either your team members or your volunteers can really help with ownership and tracking of these, right? Because a rule of thumb, and this varies for every organization, but I like to have 3 prospective donors to every gift that I need. So just to think about the $10,000 and 2 $5,000 gifts, if I want 2 gifts, that means I need 6 potential $5,000 donors. And so you can see the math and the energy and effort really begins to compound depending on the size of the gifts, the size of your team, the size of the asks. Maybe I should pause there before we launch into the next section of looking at the plan, because I said a lot of words. Anybody have questions or reflections? I haven't looked at chat yet. Yeah, beautiful. Tug on those heartstrings, yes. Will Collect have a part 2 to work with organizations to develop a fundraising plan? Kimberly, we had intro to fundraising planning as a session. I don't remember when, but
last session.
Was it the last session?
In May. That was a session in May, I believe. Yeah, I think it was May.
All right. All right, so everybody should have received a sheet. That's good feedback, Kimberly. Asteria, I'm sure we'll take that back to the programming team. If I could talk about fundraising and fundraising planning like this all day, every day, I would. I love it so much. I love it so much. All right. So everybody should have received a handout, and I'm going to drop a link in chat just in case anybody came a little bit later and didn't get it or didn't come in your email. Everyone, there you go. As you open it, make a copy and save it to your own Excel or Google Sheets workbook, because your work could be lost if you do it in the shared document. But we're not going to spend time going through filling this out together right now, but I think this is a really beautiful tool for you to think through and work on those different strategies for fundraising. And so the very first tab is to assess your current strengths, right? When you think about your different buckets of fundraising, and different constituents or groups of folks that you're talking to about your organization, it gives you an opportunity to be honest with yourselves. Like, are we on target? Do we need to be doing a little bit more, or do we need to really focus on this group? And then on the third tab, there's sample new and occasional donors, just to build out this hunk of a fundraising strategy and a constituency revenue stream with goals. and how those different strategies and tactics begin to take form and get really granular and become activities that you can either own yourself or share with your teammates or your board members, and how to really be moving the needle toward deeper engagement and involvement. And so I'm seeing something coming up. I see that developing a fundraising plan was an in-person training. I think so too. I think so too. But I will say, Kimberly, if that's not something that we get on the books in the short term, I'm not sure what the schedule is, for the fall for COACT. Me and one of my team members, Mavita Burris, host CoLab Connect office hours where we work with organizations to address challenges that they might have related to fundraising, marketing, communication. And so I would welcome the opportunity to work with you on your fundraising plan in one of those sessions if any of the dates align, and Mavita is certainly well equipped to do the same thing. Asteria, I don't know if you can find the sign up for those Collab Connects. Question about, are they the same? Yeah, they look the same. They do look the same. Looks like maybe somebody, when they were in, copied and pasted over, or copied it and pasted an additional one. So take that as a tool, use it, make it your own, right? If something fits, blow it out. If it doesn't fit, delete it. But it's just a great starting point to think through tactics relative to your fundraising strategy. All right. How many active nonprofits are there in the United States? Oh, I'm on the next slide, Asteria. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Pop quiz.
Anybody got the answer?
Well, this is based on information from, I think, the beginning of 2021. I don't think they've updated this particular slide since then. So the number may be a little bit off, but it's kind of staggering, I think. Anybody have any guesses? Anybody want to wager this?
No?
2 million?
2 million, okay.
That's, you know what? I bet it's 2 million by now. Move the map, Asteria.
Let me move the map. Okay, won't move.
It won't move. Well, if she were able to move the map, it would show
It was
in 2021, it was 1.8 million nonprofits. And in the state of Michigan, we have close to 50,000 registered 501c3s. And why I bring that up is, oh yeah, check you out. Why I bring that up is because part of, this is one of the commercials that I mentioned to you all earlier, but I think it's really valuable information, is, excuse me, on the next slide, to build out and claim your organization, your nonprofit's Candid profile. So the Candid profile, how many of you have been to your Candid profile? It's a GuideStar profile through Candid. And every organization who is a 501c3 files their taxes, the Form 990, their information is pulled into GuideStar. But all right, I see a few folks that have their hands raised. They've got it. So this is good news. One of the tools that you have available to you is, and on the next slide, Asteria, it'll show you a little bit about why it's important to claim your organization's GuideStar profile. It's free to do this, first of all. It takes very little time, but it's a really excellent way for you as leaders of your organization to share information about your mission, your work, your credibility. It really builds credibility in the donor landscape with millions of donors. And in fact, I was on at the end of last week with a client of mine and one of their donors. And when I suggested to the organization that they go for platinum certifications, platinum transparency seal, the funder was like, we absolutely do look at the GuideStar profiles to see how transparent organizations are. And so, you know, it's, if we go to the next slide, it gives you very simple breakdown of the things that you have to do. It's all good practices for 501c3s to be doing this work. Chances are very good that you have easy access to the information that Candid requires you to fill in for your GuideStar profile. But you can see it's about basically sharing your mission, talking about your programs, talking about how you measure and report on success, and how your leadership is reported. This gives funders a really great way to get information about your nonprofit one-stop shop. For organizations that have revenue of $1 million or less, excuse me, you can have access to the foundation directory online for free. And that is a tool that we have access to through COACT to search funders and potential funders that might support your organization. That's a really, really great way to do that. We know that transparency pays off, because when organizations have their GuideStar profiles updated, they do oftentimes see more return on the investment from donors. I guess that's in the next slide. It's really just a person looking at a computer. Go to the next one, Asteria. And I think there's a,
Oh, having issues, having technical difficulties. Okay. We'll go to the
I
next
hear you
slide.
clicking over there.
You hear me clicking, right? Okay,
I
it's
do
not
hear you
me.
clicking.
Hold on 1 second. Trish, you might have to share your screen.
I can do that.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
So you want to play that video?
Oh, Lord. Wait a minute. I'm not, hold on.
All right. Well, we don't need to play the video, actually. We can send you a link to how to claim your nonprofit profile in GuideStar. It's really intuitive, very simple, and highly recommended. But also Candid can walk you through it. Like, they have a tremendous number of resources on their website to walk you through that. So I know we flew through a lot of the fundraising nuts and bolts, how to attract and move individual donor, an introduction to the individual giving process. Oh,
Is this where I'm going?
area.
Huh?
I was just seeing it was going. I wasn't sure if it was going to keep going, but we can send the link to that.
Okay.
But I highly encourage organizations to do that, because for foundations and for individuals that you're working hard to build this trust and credibility with, they may look for that. And then you've got a beautiful seal to put on your website. Just makes it easy for folks to find. So I'd love to open the floor for any questions, reflections, feedback.
Hello. I put a quick question. Some of the past topics I wasn't aware of. Is there where it's a place where the recordings are on the website to rewatch, like the past workshops?
Yes.
There
Yes,
are.
Yeah, they're on the website.
So there's some on the website right now, Tiffany, from last year. I don't know that the teams had a chance to edit this year's yet and put them back up, but they're there. We can share a link to where they are too. Oh, how do we gain access to the funder database through COACT? Asteria, when is the next drop-in workday scheduled?
The next drop-in workday is scheduled for June. It's the 4th Thursday in June. I can't remember the exact date.
Let's see.
You can also register for that on on the website as well.
I think it's the 27th.
27, or maybe the 20th.
So you can do that. And also, in addition to COACT being a Foundation Directory Online partner, you can also find other Foundation Directory Online partners through Candid. So if the timing doesn't work out for you to visit COACT on the drop-in workday, there are other organizations locally that do have access to the Foundation Directory Online for free. I know for sure Wayne State. I don't know what their access points and times are, but they offer that as a resource as well. I see lots of folks saying that they have their GuideStar certification, their transparencies and encouragement, that it seems intimidating, but it's not. That's true. How to build, okay, so this is a question from Jackie. How to build trust with active individual donors who have a relationship with the leader or the organization, but who are hesitant or non-responsive to others in the organization. Yeah, so I think this is a perennial conversation with our nonprofit organizations, right? Like there are lots of different versions of leaders, right? There are some that really center themselves in the conversation with donors and organizational efficacy. There are others that center the constituents and the programs that they're working on in their communication. I'm a big proponent of centering the programs, right? Working to highlight the efficacy and the benefit of investing in and partnering with your work. And so I think part of the answer to your question, Jackie, is how do we show our leaders that with a fundraising strategy, we need to include other voices at the table, right? So part of that fundraising plan will help you to put together the plan and actions to center the programs and constituents of your organization outside of the leader of the organization. But you have to continue to communicate, whether it's through your social media, through your newsletters, through your event attendance, through earned media like press mentions, right? However you can continue to have your organization's programs and the benefit of your work centered in the community, that will help to build that trust and deepen those relationships. What is the success rate of selling organizational merchandise or having an online store? Lisa, the answer to that varies greatly on so many things. Let's see. I don't really know how to answer that shortly, but if you have a product and a market to buy the product, it can be very, very successful, right? But you have to put yourself in the mind of a consumer. So, you know, I probably wouldn't try to sell Mondo branded mugs to anybody, right? Like nobody's gonna buy my Mondo mug. But if my mug said something like, you know, kick butt fundraiser, people might buy that. So just thinking about like how the thing that you have to sell may speak to the potential audience really matters. So I'm trying to think of who's done it well. The Detroit Riverfront Conservancy has really beautiful merchandise that they have set up an online storefront for. You know, I don't think they market it as a big part of their business revenue, but it, you know, when you think about the tagline that they were selling a while ago about bring everybody, it resonated with a large group of folks. So what message do you have that could resonate with folks that would get them excited enough to put your message, your logo, your anything on something that they might purchase? Can I talk about how AI can be used to help with fundraising, especially helping to develop a fundraising plan? Yeah, you know, I'm still finding my way in the AI land, but I do like to ask ChatGPT lots of questions just to see if it has similar answers to what I might have, right? So if you ask ChatGPT to help you define and refine audience segments or to develop messaging to resonate with specific audiences, it can be really helpful in that. Will also say, don't just copy and paste whatever you find from a robot, because they don't know you like you know you. I think it can be handy, but also we still need the human touch in some of this work. As a nonprofit offering tax write-off as an incentive, how much has to be given for a tax write-off to benefit them? Irene, I really appreciate that question. I don't know that I would go to market with messaging to any individual or mass group that says, please give to us because it will benefit your taxes. I think knowing that some individuals may be motivated by the tax write-off is handy information to have when going into a meeting. So that's an asterisk, an aside. To answer your question, it depends. It depends on what they're giving to. So for example, if you're having an event and your tickets are $100, but the individual gets, $35 worth of food and swag, the tax number, yeah, rudimentary. The write-offable amount is the difference between the goods and services received and the amount they paid for that ticket. I'm not super hip to tax laws right now anyway, to know like what giving threshold individuals need to meet. I like to keep folks out of tax advice land. Some organizations will host like lunch and learns with tax advising professionals as a benefit to their donors, to say, all right, I'm looking at my year-end giving. Here's a tax professional or an estate planning professional that may help you in making those determinations. Would be just a really good way for you to build community around that question in particular. All right, Sharita has a fundraiser coming up that she invited us all to. Do you want to tell us about it? I can't see it too well, but if you want to come off mute and tell us about your event, we'd love to hear about it.
Sure. I figured, speaking of asking, might as well ask, right? But we are celebrating our 5-year anniversary. Just a little bit of a background story. I was the one that mentioned about turning pain into purpose. My niece was killed back in August of 2018 due to a police chase in Michigan. And unfortunately, that police department chased a known victim into a residential area, which is Detroit, where it happened. And they went from their side of the city to the Detroit area. And unfortunately, my niece was hit, and my nephew was also in the vehicle, but my niece didn't make it. My nephew did, thank God. And we founded our foundation in March of 19, and we offer scholarships to high school seniors and college freshmen who major in performing arts and journalism. Those were her passions, and because they were her passions, that's why we have the scholarships in particular for those majors, because they are the first cut in the high schools, and for those that have school children, it is really one of the first budget cuts when it comes to the arts. And that's something that the kids really need and really desire. And there are a lot of fine arts majors who could benefit from just a niche type of scholarship, and that's what we provide. So with that being said, we just wanted to, excuse me, make sure that we offered those scholarships in our short amount of time. We've given out 9 scholarships, and we're giving out 4 more this month. And, we really are excited. We're not scared. We're just a little anxious about Our 5-year anniversary gala is the first time we're doing it because it's a milestone. And we're just really looking forward to it. So I'll put the link in the chat as well, and would appreciate the support. We're currently asking for donors and sponsors, and having a few different types of events, but also asking some of the corporate sponsors. I've been going through the foundation directory that Trisha mentioned, that's available on Candid. We've definitely been utilizing that. Now we're just waiting to hear back, from some of the asks that we've given. So I'll stop right there, but I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. And I know we've had the opportunity to talk, I think, previously about
Yeah.
this a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple of things that, I just want to mention based on what Sharita shared with us. Anniversaries for organizations are really great opportunities to share with your constituent groups the importance of what they're doing. As a mom of a 15-year-old who's about to turn 16, her sweet 16 is the most important thing to her on the planet right now, right? She is super excited about this. However, the other folks in her world aren't necessarily as excited about that milestone, right? Like I am, I'm her mom, I was there, I created her. But what's important, I think, as we think about anniversaries and important holidays is what does it mean to the people we've been able to serve? So Sharita, I love that you were centering the scholarships, the lives that are changed, the opportunity to help kids who have passions similar to your niece, right? Like those are all really beautiful messages to share, and using your anniversary as an opportunity to say, look at where we've come from in 5 years. So,
Right.
I encourage organizations to be a little bit quieter on the number of years and the anniversary piece, but to use it as a reminder with your constituents and potential funders and people that you're building relationships with about the importance of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just put the link in the chat.
Cool. And somebody else did an somebody's robot has left us with some notes here. So thank you for sharing, Barbara, your robot's output. All right. You want to bring us home, Asteria?
Sure. Okay, everyone, it's that survey time. If you all could please either scan the QR code. I have put the link in the chat to the survey. If you could just take 5 minutes before you get offline to take the survey, it would be great. We appreciate your feedback, and it helps us to develop our programs as well. Thank you all.
Yeah, and as you go through and click that and take all the time that you need to fill out the survey, I just want to share my gratitude for you for choosing to spend time and listen to me folks, listening to me for an hour, chat about nonprofit work and building your individual fundraising strategies. Really grateful to be here to share space with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And our next session is not until December. Not till September. Our next session will not be till September. We don't have any sessions. We might have some sessions, a session here and there over the summer, but we will let you know. But for now, as part of these trainings, we won't meet back here until September 10th. So hopefully I'll see some of you go over the summer. If not, we'll see you all back here in September, and have a great summer.
Tiffany, I know you asked about the link for the past recordings. I couldn't put my fingers on the exact link. Asteria might have it, but if you go to the coactdetroit.org, there's a resources tab, which has links to how to set up those one-on-one consulting appointments with some folks that have carved out space in their time. There are libraries, there's where you can reserve space. There's a virtual resource library, which is where I think those live. In fact, I'm sure it's where they live now that I see them. So
Yes.
there's some fundraising impact webinars there. Thank you.